fight that's been rumoured to maybe be in the future. It's a question from @onlyme9. The fight that's rumoured is Anthony Joshua versus David Haye. And the question is, who wins if, and I'll just say, if both are fully prepared and both have had a couple of warm-up fights, because obviously David Haye's been out for a long time, but who wins that fight if they're both in top condition?
At the moment, you've got to say that if they're both in top condition, because David Haye has a long time out and Anthony Joshua's very much at the start of his career building himself up, but at the moment, I just think David Haye would have too much for him by way of experience. He punches very hard, he comes forward, and he starts strong, and he tries to knock you out from round one. And he may just overwhelm Anthony Joshua early on. I'm not saying Anthony Joshua wouldn't make him walk into a shot and wouldn't be able to stand there and mix it with him. But on paper, Anthony Joshua's at the very start of his career. He's still got to be built up. He's still got to become a seasoned professional. He's not been past 4 or 5 rounds, has he?
No.
So
he's not been caught, really.
No, David Haye's done a couple of 12-rounders, and he knows what it's like to mix it with the best of the best. He's been in there with Klitschko. I know he lost that fight, but he's had some good 12-rounders with some heavyweights, and he's shocked a lot of people doing what he's done, because he's not a heavyweight, David Haye. Anthony Joshua is a fighting machine, and I'm not saying for 1 minute that Joshua can't beat David Haye, because when Joshua is a seasoned professional, he beats David Haye. But at the moment, if they're saying who wins now, David Haye or Joshua, and they're both fully trained, the smart money would have to be on David Haye.
So if
purely because of experience.
So if you're managing Anthony Joshua or you're Eddie Hearn now, you just delay that fight for a bit. You
won't put Joshua in with David Haye now. If he's
how long would you wait?
I think in 18 months.
18.
Yeah, I think it's a steady win. And I say steady, it's probably not going to be steady, but for Joshua, because he's got size and reach and strength and weight advantage on David Haye, when he's got the experience under him, I just think he's going to be phenomenal, Anthony Joshua. I think he's going to be an undisputed heavyweight champion. Fantastic. And I think he can beat the likes of Klitschko, which David Haye fell short on. Just at the moment, you wouldn't put Joshua in there with him, and that's why Joshua's not been in with the likes of David Price and other fighters like Deontay Wilder. That Joshua could probably be beat now, but you just wouldn't take that risk. Why would you risk your cash cow, the golden goose, early on? Why do it? It's going to build. It's going to gather momentum, and if the fight's still there, it will happen. If it doesn't, it will go on to become undisputed champion. It would be mismanagement to chuck him in there with someone like David Haye now. Although David Price got chinned again at the weekend, and Joshua could have been the man to take that scalp, and I think he would have beat David Price, even though that would have been a risky fight at this stage. A lot of people don't understand boxing. They don't realise Josh hasn't been past 4 rounds, and if you jump in there with someone who can keep out the way and hang on for 4 or 5 rounds and then finish strong, he could all of a sudden be in a world of trouble just because of his inexperience.
Okay, well let's move that on. I'll just bring up some other potential fights that are talked about as happening. Some, well, I think probably all of them are likely to happen at some point. Who wins Khan Brook?
I think it's a very close fight. Me personally, I think Kell Brook will knock out Khan. I always like the big puncher, but I'm a bit of a puncher myself, and I like fighters that try and knock out an opponent, try and finish it in style, and try and get the win. And Kell Brook does after round 5 or 6. He puts his foot on the gas, backs his opponent up. Especially now since his injury, he's got a new frame of mind, he's got a new mindset when he's in there, he's trying to win and he's trying to do damage. We saw that against Frankie Gavin, we saw it when he fought Sean Porter for the title, and he went and he took it to him in his back garden in America, and he won the title, won the vacant IBF title. So against Amir Khan, who would jab and move and use his fast hands and his slick skills, he's a great fighter. Amir Khan is an unbelievable talent, but he's been knocked out a couple of times, he's been beat. Kell Brook's the champion, he's a puncher, he's gaining momentum and is naturally stronger, and he's got skills himself. I've sparred with Kell Brook and I find it difficult to land a jab on him. It's very deceptive. You look at him when you watch him fight and you think you can hit him, then when you get in there you're getting counter-punched and he throws a right hand over your jab and you don't see it coming. Well, I certainly didn't anyway, and that was a few years ago before I won my 3rd world title. So I think Kell Brook knocks out Amir Khan, but I can see how Amir Khan outpoints Kell Brook. I can see how that could happen. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd be behind Kell Brook. Okay. And that's not because he's my friend. I don't train with him in Sheffield. I know him. He's under the same promotional banner as I was, under Matchroom. But I just think the puncher and the guy that's got momentum and the guy that's doing well. Amir Khan struggled in his last fight as well, don't forget. So, yeah,
Okay.
Smart money's on Brook in a close fight.
Okay. And the next fight, Groves DeGale, who wins?
I think James DeGale would win the rematch just because he's now champion. He had a real confidence boost against Darrell. I mean, he struggled against Darrell. First 4 rounds, I thought he looked fantastic, great. Knocked Darrell out knocked him down in round 2. He was backing him up, landing good shots, and then all of a sudden he went off the boil. So I was unimpressed with DeGale from round 5 through to the final round. But maybe that's because in his head he'd done enough with the knockdown, and he went into second gear and he was thinking, if I can just see the final bell, I'm going to win this on points, which is what he did, but he nearly threw it away. I think there's more to come from DeGale. I think we've seen the best of Groves. And I think by being knocked out by me twice, and the first fight, alright, it was stopped early. We all know what went off with the controversy. The referee stopping a few seconds early, but it was subjective. People will agree that if the fight was left to carry on, he would have been knocked out. That's because he was on his way to being knocked out. If you're on your way to being knocked out, it means you're hurt, you've been beat up. See the state of his face the next day. So that fight was a bit of a beating and a battering on his confidence. The rematch, he got the floor white with him. He got absolutely knocked out in front of 8,000 fans at the Wembley Stadium. I don't know if you saw that. But
and what impact? I know that's never happened to you, but what impact does that have on a boxer to be knocked out like that? Not on the stage that it was, but in the manner in which it was. Does that play in the back of your mind that that can happen to you?
In my opinion, it affects everything for your next camp. When you're training and you're sparring, you realise you can be knocked out. He knows he can be knocked out anyway. I've knocked him out 3 times, Groves. I knocked him out in sparring. I beat him in that first fight. I knocked him out bad in the second fight. So that's 3 times he's had a bit of a whooping at the hands of myself. I'm not just digging him out and saying it for the sake of it. They're the facts.
Yeah.
And when you get beat up like that, I mean, I've had some bad spars in the past. Howard Eastman, when I first turned pro, gave me a bit of a pasting. And it dents your confidence. You think to yourself, I'm not good enough. I'm not cut out for boxing. You know, and I did get knocked out by Howard Eastman. I just lost quite a few rounds and I got hit with some heavy shots that I felt. And he's a middleweight, but I was brand new professional, not even had a fight. And I was jumping in with him because I was confident and probably overconfident, a little bit cocky, naive. And it dents your confidence, it damages you mentally, just having a bad spar. So I can imagine getting knocked out. I mean, I've never been knocked out, but I speak to people who get knocked out. When they go into the gym and start their camp, it's in the back of their mind. I could get knocked out in my next fight. So the whole training preparation, the whole 12-week training camp is affected in a negative way. When they're sparring, they're not pushing forward, they're not doing what they need to be doing to get the best out of their spars, which will get them fitter and stronger and build their confidence into the fight. So when I say Groves is a shot fighter, what I mean by that is he's so badly damaged mentally and he's had the 2 knockouts physically, I think it's affecting his camp. So when he gets in the ring, he's not as good as he could be because the mindset's not there. So when I say he's been cobra'd, you know, like fighters I've boxed before that have not boxed again or never look the same, like Lucian Butte. And even Kessler retired after our first fight, and then he come back and he retired after our second fight. And there's fighters like Tony Dodson and I think Robin Reed, people that have not boxed again since fighting me, or looked really bad after the knockout since boxing me, or any other fighter that's been knocked out then came back. And I think that's happened to Groves. I might be wrong.
So you see DeGale winning?
So I see DeGale beating Groves, at least on points, in potentially a one-sided performance. He could just outbox him and outskill him. I couldn't see Groves pushing him back and fighting back like he did in their first fight. And don't forget that first fight with DeGale could have gone either way.
Yeah,
it was almost a split decision. I think it was a majority win to Groves. One of the judges had it to DeGale, the other 2 had it to Groves. So it was a majority win for, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll get corrected if I am wrong, for Groves. So it was very close. And since that fight, Groves has gone backwards. He's left Adam Booth, he's joined Gavin Fitzpatrick, who calls himself Paddy, for whatever reason, and he's been knocked out a couple of times by me. DeGale's got better and better and better. He's won the world title and he's now confident, looking ahead. And I know how that feels when you're world champion and you're confident. You become a better fighter. Yeah. So if they met now, I would say James DeGale beats George Groves.
Okay. And the last one, Quigg Frampton, who wins?
Quigg Frampton's a great fight, and up until watching Quigg against Martinez on Saturday night, I was shocked by the way in which he was merciless in his finish. You know, he came out round 1 very cold, very quiet, didn't do much, just backed up the whole round, and I was thinking, he's like a deer in the headlights here. This is his chance now, and he's blowing it. But I've done that a couple of times myself in the first round. You back up, you feel a few punches, you don't really want to get involved. You just want to get your feet on the canvas, feel the pressure leave you, get your flow, get the size of the ring. Just something mentally for him there in round one. I think he was a bit switched off. I think he went back to his corner. Joe Gallagher probably gave him a kick up the arse, told him, look, you've lost that round, you're backing up, get into gear, wake up. And he did. He came out round two. He took it to was it Martinez? And I was thinking of Perez, Croller's opponent. I thought Corolla won that one as well, but that's another story. And he just put it on him, and as soon as he caught Martinez, he knew he'd hurt him, and he just jumped on him like he should do, and got the job done. And it was, like I said, it was a merciless finish, and I was very impressed, and I think he'll grow in confidence from that. And on top of that, we're talking about his fight with Frampton. Frampton really struggled and showed fragility that I've never seen before in Frampton. He got put down with like a hook jab in round one, which didn't look like much. He was off balance, he was square on. But then, towards the end of round one, he got hit with a flush right hand while he was ducking low on the side of the chin or the side of the head. And he went down, his legs went from under him. And he stood up, and you could see that look of his face. He was like shocked and disappointed. He sort of looked at his corner and shook his head as if to say, what's going off? And walked back to his neutral corner. Did what he had to do to go through the fight and finish strong. But it was a pick-em fight that showed signs of vulnerability for Frampton. So my opinion's changed on that. I've not seen much of Quigg where I've thought, you know what, he can beat Frampton. I've seen some good performances from Frampton. So now I think it's a 50-50 fight where if I had to gamble on it, and I'm not a gambling man, but if I had to, I'd say Quigg does the job.